Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined by Joaquin Vazquez. He is running for Congress in California District 53, which is San Diego area. So thank you so much for joining us. And I apologize, you guys. We had technical issues. You know it's not the first time, but we're here. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Joaquin. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today here and giving me this opportunity to just speak to you and speak to folks that are going to be joining us today as well. I'm honored,
Absolutely.
humbled, feel very
So
privileged.
right on. What made you decide to run?
Just realizing that, over the years, we tried allowing folks, basically, we tried the limits of empathy and see how much empathy can really, people's empathy really can help solve problems for those of us that are poor. We've tried them in our district for about 20 years almost now, and they can only go so far. So my approach is, all right, we growing up here in the most, in the worst parts of town, we're closest to the pain, we're closest to the problems, and as I was growing up, there's a lot of people that helped me out in school, at work, to continue to push me further. Um, so I think that there's nobody else that can really solve these problems that we're facing, be it climate change, be it racial, economic, justice, be it education inequities, and that huge gap, between the rich and the poor that we have right now that keeps widening. There's nobody that can really just start standing up for us than ourselves, right? So I've done everything that I can to prepare myself for, standing up for people all over the area and touching on every issue that I can as an activist, as a, as a as a student, as everything that I've been doing in my professional career as well. And right now, I think just we're tired. We're tired, and we have a president right now that destroying everything that we hold dear and love, and that includes people's lives, that includes our families, that includes our neighbors. And we have current representatives in both parties, but also in our party and in the Democratic Party, that are basically enablers of this because they're not really fighting for the people. They're fighting for corporate interest. They're fighting for their own interest. They're knee deep in corporate money, and that really it gives us a clear message of where their priorities stand.
Absolutely. So is that kind of who you're running against? What is the incumbent like?
Yes. So the incumbent is, she's probably the sweetest person in Congress. She's very nice. We've worked in in certain projects throughout the years that I've helped out. You might not remember me. I was just an activist and an organizer, but she takes about 80% of her campaign contributions from the corporate world, and the vast majority of that comes from the military-industrial complex and military contractors, while she serves on the Armed Forces Committee. So you can
Ooh.
you can see where again.
Oh my God. Wow.
That's what we're
Oh,
facing.
is it just the two of you running?
No, we have two other challengers as well.
And California, I know a lot of our viewers are in California, but just in case those who aren't, they have the jungle primary where
Right.
the top two vote getters move forward, whether it's two Republicans, a Green, and a Dem, or whatever. So basically, it that can work well for progressives, but it can also not work well. So what is your take on that? Do you think it's going to be advantageous?
I would say so, especially in our district. Our district leans a lot more progressive. It is, you know, it's a blue district, and it is a district that actually Sanders won over Hillary in 2016. So I'm very comfortable with that. But again, I'm the type of person that's open to dialogue. So I think we can really, um, what we've been doing so far, we've been really getting a lot of support from people in general. My focus has been more on reaching out to the people and, you know, letting them know this is what we got to fight for. And it's the community and the party and people in general have been loving what we've been doing. They've been
So
very
is
receptive.
have you endorsed Bernie 2020?
Uh, no, not yet, but we're reaching out to folks also as well to.
Not yet. Oh my God, Jose Caballero. I no wonder why this district sounded familiar.
Yeah.
That's why. Oh my God. See, I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm in Pennsylvania, so California is a big state. So yes, I had Jose on last month. That's why it sounded familiar. So yeah, so at least there is another progressive running, which is good.
Right. Yeah.
So what is your your main goal as far as things you want to focus on in your race specifically?
I think every district is different, right? And just growing up here, I know that the main things that are affecting us are economic, inequality, the lack of, good education opportunities. So K through 12 uh, public school funding, it's not benefiting us at all. We live in an area, again, where the funding for our schools depends on our zip code. Um, and also, folks that live in the most vulnerable parts of town, uh, our parents don't make enough money. So that argument that we get a lot, and people tell me a lot, it's like, oh, all right, well, if you live in that area, I'm sorry, but we pay more in taxes. And of course, it's obvious that you're going to be paying a lot more in taxes when we have wages that are definitely far from livable wages. They're remaining stagnant, and cost of living keeps on going up. Housing, rental, and and mortgages and all of that keeps going up. All of that is really unattainable for us. So I'm standing up for everything that our incumbent is not standing up for. Um, really turning everything on its head, getting money out of politics, start fighting for science-based or backed policies, start fighting for our environment, start fighting for animals and plant species, start fighting for our Native Americans brothers and sisters, start fighting for better wages so we can actually just focus on working one job, and so that we can actually afford to enjoy our family. We live in a time right now where we cannot afford to enjoy our family. We spend more time at work. We cannot afford to go sometimes to, I don't have kids myself, but I have nephews and nieces, and I see my siblings that they cannot make it to certain meetings, certain awards, things like that. So my priorities are really focusing on rebuilding that, a strong working class, a strong middle class, so that we can all make it. We got to get Medicare for all. We got to get, forgive student loans, do away with all that. We need to make public colleges and universities free, tuition free, and also start funding public schools differently, so that those of us that grew up in the most vulnerable parts of town can actually start seeing and visualizing ourselves going to college. I work really hard, and I went to college, I went to grad school, and I've had many opportunities that nobody else in my whole extended family has ever had, and that includes not only just my family members, but I'm talking about hundreds of people with friends and everyone that I grew up with. Um, People just look at me like, wow, like Joaquin is the one that made it from my family, from my friends, from my neighbors, from my neighborhoods. And it's something that is a big responsibility for me growing up, having everybody say, all right, we're going to help Joaquin. You know, Joaquin needs to pay for these books. He's struggling. And I'm just saying, hey, I'm not asking for the help, but uh, now it's just time to come back and really help them out. One thing that's always stayed very ingrained in my mind was, Joaquin, if you don't help yourself, you cannot come back and help us out.
Right, absolutely. Um, so you touched on Medicare for All a little. I've never had to say this until the last debate, but what kind of Medicare for All do you support?
Wow.
Do you support the kind, like the real kind, the Bernie kind, that takes out for-profit health insurance, or like the Warren kind that like keeps it in and only like some people die?
No, we don't need people dying.
Yeah.
We don't need people
Correct.
dying.
We don't.
No. We need medical fraud so we can actually have free access for everyone, right? Okay. So we don't need insurance companies to, raising costs. We don't need them there at all. So we'll do away with the insurance companies. Um, uh, we will do away with all those, like that whole problem of having that broker, that middleman, or that middle person or entity, and just go straight through single payer. That's all we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you support a federal job guarantee?
I do support a federal job guarantee
Okay, and why is that?
because the government, again, the way things are, we need to start helping those that, the way we have the system set up, keep people from having a job, right? There's a lot of people that have, records sometimes for petty crimes that add up. There's so much that we've done, that the government's done in general to the less fortunate, the less affluent, and I think it's the least we can do right now to ensure that everybody has a job. We keep talking about how, or there's a national conversation about how things are going so well right now. We're close to full employment. Unemployment rates are around 3%, but it's easy to say that and just kind of like on the high level, uh, visualize that and say, hey, this is something positive. But out here, we're working two jobs. We're working, sometimes a third job, which we're hustling everywhere we can, and it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So federal job guarantee is part of the Green New Deal. What, as far as as far as the environment, what are some of the things that you feel like we should focus on? I mean, it's a pretty broad topic, but what are some of the things that you think we should be focusing on first?
Look, I think once we start getting money out of politics, things are going to start working better. Why? Because we'll do away with the fossil fuel industries. We'll do away with, all of their influence in our democracy, their free reign over our democracy. We'll do away with that, and we'll start working towards renewable energy. We'll actually get rid of all the barriers that we have to actually take care of our lands. We'll start taking care of species that are going extinct. And so it's just focus. It's approaching it at every angle as possible and leaving no stone unturned. It is very broad, right? But for this, at least for me, and seeing my family, how it's been so hard to find, good job training and getting out of the hole. Essentially, this is a big opportunity for us. I see it as like the light at the end of the tunnel, where we can finally have not only the federal job guarantee, but we can have good job training program in specialized, green jobs for regular, like everyday, people that can start
Yeah.
having some sort of professional career, when before we couldn't. So there's just so much opportunity that'll really just start spurring economic growth. It'll start, we'll have better air. We'll have, we'll start getting rid of like perhaps even many of the diseases and things where, um, like pollution, I think that just continue to hinder our existence.
Right, absolutely. If we only have, like 11 years left to try and combat climate change, I don't see how that's even close to feasible without a federal jobs guarantee. There's too much
Right.
shit we got to do. But
There's too
yeah,
much that we have to do.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
too much stuff to be done. I don't know
There's a lot.
how else people think we can, do it. It just doesn't make sense. Um, so I know the topic of immigration is very important to you. Do you want
It
to
is.
share kind of your background and why you're passionate about that?
Yeah. My dad immigrated when he was a kid, um, to San Diego. He's from central Mexico, Morelia, Michoacan. He, you know, did so mainly because he was an orphan at 7 years old. His mom and I mean his dad and his grandfather were killed, murdered in front of him, in Morelia, where he was living outside their home. Some guy that just came and knocked the door, and he was drunk, and he had started an argument, and then bam. So he he moved from place to place in Mexico until he made it up to San Diego, across the border, looking for a better life. And that might sound cliche for a lot of people. I get a lot of people just rolling their eyes when I say that. The immigrants are looking for something better, but that's the reality of this country. Everyone that's come to this country is looking for a better life. And my dad, being a kid and then a teenager, working, making his way through life all the way up here, that's what he wanted. He got here. He he probably did a lot of bad things, but also a lot of good things. Uh, when he was 17, he was going back and forth between Tijuana and San Diego. The border wasn't what it is right now, and he met my mom. They fell in love. They started having kids. They had 7 kids, and then, throughout the time that, as we were growing up through the 90s, we kept losing, not well, the ability of, or my dad kept losing the ability to pay for where we were living. We lived in I guess right now I see it as an affluent, part of town. It's probably more middle class, but it's definitely out of my reach, and it's out of the reach of a lot of people in the middle class as well. That area is called Golden Hill. So we kept moving because there's a lot of people just getting cramped in together. Wages again are stagnant, and we end up in a part of town which is really dear to me, and I love that area. It's City Heights. A lot of the Hispanic, population is there as well, and African Americans, the minorities really, and it's got a very international, sense to it. It's just everyone's there. It's lively. It's great. But what's really, unfortunate is that the people with the less, the lowest incomes, the less affluent people are the ones that live there, and that's all of my family. Um, and already moving from a 3 bedroom home, a house, in Golden Hill on a car wash man's salary, my dad's a car wash man's wage in the 90s, we went to live in the apartment, a 2 bedroom apartment, from 9 people in a home, in a 3 bedroom home, to 16 people in a 2 bedroom apartment. And we were still making it. My dad, over the years, obviously got deported several times, different rates at his jobs, and he eventually gets, picked up again by La Migra, um, and this time they said, you know what, we're going to hold you for a little longer because you keep coming back every time we deport you, you keep coming back after a couple of days. So he was held for about 8 months, and that destroyed our family. He was eventually going to get deported, but they knew what they were doing. And my mom and my brothers, we became homeless. We lost our apartment. We couldn't make rent. She started selling everything that we had. We eventually stayed in my dad's van for about 2 months. I remember the day she was really hustling to get $72 because she had borrowed some money some weeks before, and that person was threatening her, and so she sold the van for $72 to pay that debt, and then we're on the street. From there, we just over
Uh-oh.
about
Okay.
about 8 months or so, um, until one day we were with one of her friends, and she and my mom was out looking for work, so she was supposed to be taking care of us, and she eventually called the police. She saw how bad things were and felt like she needed to do something. So Child Protection Services came and took me and my other three siblings that were there, that weren't with my mom at the moment. Um, and so we were taken away, and that was probably one of the most scariest part of the moment for us. Is we were being told that we were probably going to stay there for a long time at this emergency shelter, um, or center for children whose parents cannot provide for them. um, and we did a lot of interviews. They questioned us a lot. I was 10 years old. I still didn't know what was going on. I remember police taking my dad. I remember my mom crying every single night. Just couldn't keep it together because things were so bad. But that's what immigration. That's what our current immigration system does. It just destroys families. It separates them. It kills people. Um, it just it's inhumane, and these are all the ripple effects of just one action, which was taking the breadwinner from a family away, a family whose mother does not speak a word of English and had not had a full-time job since she was a teenager in Mexico. And so we were eventually returned to my mom when they figured out they that she was just not somebody that was messing up in life. And she was scared. She was really scared. She got a warning. She said, "You got to get a roof over your head. You got to get a roof over your kid's head, or we're gonna take them away." So she said, "All right, well, you know what? We're going to Mexico." And we went to Mexico. And once we arrived to her hometown, um, most of her family was not there anymore. Mainly the elders, but we couldn't find them until a couple of days later. So we slept. We didn't sleep in a house. We were just outside, and we eventually got a place to spend the night. And we were there for about 2 months in the city of Guanajuato. We met a guy who was really nice. He's a baker. He came over one day and said, "Hey, I heard about what's going on. You're a single mother with all these kids. If they want to work, I can give them some work." So I got my first job at 10 years old at a bakery. So I show up, I get up at 4 in the morning. I'd be at that bakery making the donuts, making all that nice, tasty bread. And
I'm sure
then
you didn't sneak anything though, right?
no. That guy was he would actually just give us like, "Hey, here, eat so you can get out there and get some energy," right? So we didn't have to. And then we'll just be out with like these huge baskets over our heads, selling bread all over the town, and selling bread for like 50 cents pesos, which is, I don't know, like it's way less than 5 cents. It's like a penny right now, in today's dollars. And yeah, so that was our life. We started working. I started working when I was 10. I'm about to be 30. I got about 20 years of work experience, multifaceted. I worked as a mechanic, as a baker, stocking groceries, bagging groceries. I worked, on hot dog carts. I've done all of that: construction, painting, carpentry, um, you know, tile, uh, a lot of stuff. I can go down the line and just like yes, 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 no, yes, yes, yes. Uh, and that would I remember just being when we were out there in Mexico. Um, I was just really angry. I was a really angry kid. I had all this responsibility. My two older brothers were also working, but they would cross to San Diego a lot to come work. And so my dad was working the two jobs. They were working in San Diego. So it was me with my four younger brothers. I'd go to work at a grocery store. I'd get them all. I'll come back home. I'll get them ready, make food, get them ready to go to school. They go to school. I went to school, come back, make sure that they ate dinner, and then I'd go back to work. And I'd be back home anywhere between midnight and 2 a.m. So my days were really long. My days were really long growing up. And then eventually, when I was 15, I came back to San Diego. I started working at a car wash. It was close to the high school that I went to, Crawford High School, um, the worst performing high school in the area, in the region, as far as standardized test scores, and also one of the least funded schools in there. So when I tell people what I've done, they're like, okay, so what high school did you go to? La Jolla, and they start mentioning these fancy ones. I was like, no, I went to Crawford High School. They're like, whoa, okay, but that that's me. And and I could probably not have done it without the strong unity, the bond that we built at home. uh, but I still feel like I have not made it, and it's the same case for everyone in my neighborhood, everyone in the district. And it's not only the district, it's the where I grew up is split into two districts. Things are the same. Things are even worse than they were back then. They're way worse than they were back then. And like I said, the folks that are not helping out right now, even if they're Democrats, they're enabling things to continue to be like that. They just keep
Absolutely.
discarding us. And so, yes, immigration is a huge part of, a huge issue that I'm really going to fight for. I think it's time to somebody that's here in the border city to start making that, really focusing on that as well. Uh,
Mhm.
Everything that is destroying our communities, is something that they really need to be focusing on. And that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. How is that, as someone who has been through those traumatic things? How is that seeing everything that's playing out right now?
It's frustrating, but I cannot sit still. I cannot stand still. I've been an organizer and activist for ever since I made it back when I was back to San Diego, when I was a teen, when I was 15, um, making less than minimum wage because I wasn't being charged taxes, as somebody that was working under the table, I guess. I was paying my room. I was going to high school, and then sending some of that money as remittances to my family at home in Tijuana. Um, I can't stop doing what I can, whatever is within my power and my ability to keep pushing back. And so the buffoon that we have right now in the White House is yet just another challenger, yet just another oppressor that we need to fight. And right now, I am the best person prepared to actually fight back. I have this combination of the dual experience, really growing up and how I grew up, which is not only my story, it's the story of a lot of people in my in the district and in the region. So I'm bringing all of that. I'm bringing all the activists, uh, everyone on that's really just continues to fight back. Um, I'm bringing them all to the table, not only folks that have been involved in the party and the politics, over the years. No, this is about a people movement. Um, we need fresh faces. We need people that really have been closest to the pain, to the problems, to start coming up with the solutions. And for me, that has been my life's work, preparing myself to be that person. work. If you probably saw my story also on my website, I've worked in almost every level of government. I've worked at local government, state government, federal government, and I've even been in Geneva, letting speaking truth to power out there and letting the UN and the World Trade Organization that they're not really focused on the most vulnerable. They're just focused on whoever's giving them money. So I've been all over the place. It's cost a lot. I've sacrificed a lot of time sometimes with my family, but I make sure that every month or every other month that I'm out here during the time that I was away. Uh, but again, how is it? There's a lot that we need to keep fighting for. That's how I feel. I get up every morning and I'm overwhelmed with the news. I'm overwhelmed with things that are going, but I channel that into fuel. I channel that into energy to keep going. So I get up and I'm thinking about all this, and then I just said, all right, this is why I'm doing this. So I get up, get ready, get my coffee, and I'm out that door at 7 in the morning, make it back home sometimes at midnight or 2 in the morning. But if these folks just don't stop from destroying our lives, I cannot stop myself in fighting back. So right now as a candidate, I wear two hats. I'm the candidate, and I'm also that people person that's always in the community, organizing, getting all the activists together. And right now it's just been an amazing, overwhelming feeling of support that I never thought in a million years that we would get.
What are some of the things that are people's greatest concerns when you're going canvassing or phone banking or things like that, and you speak with people? What is something that you hear the most?
People need somebody to believe in. The biggest question is, all right, how are you any different than who's there or who's running? How are you any different than anyone else? Because we've trusted everyone. And I said, look, everyone's always focused on who else is keeping them honest. My life is keeping me honest. Everything that I've been through is keeping me honest. My family, my brothers, my siblings, my nieces and nephews, they're the ones keeping me honest. I cannot stand still and just with my arms crossed while I see our communities being destroyed, and I see that my nieces and my nephews are getting to the those ages where they need to go to schools that are better funded. I see a world right now in the direction that we're going that is really just going to not be providing the best life to my nephews and my nieces, and they're the future. They're little kids. They're 6 years old, 4 years old, 2 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old. They're just wonderful kids that really want to get out there and live just like us. And everyone in our time and the past generations, um, there's a lot of blame to go around as far as like why we're where we're at. But what we need to be doing is getting out there and start fixing things, and start putting in the work and pulling no punches back. So, the biggest concern that I see, folks, there's all these issues. There's environment, there's education, there's money out of politics. But the biggest concern is this person really going to be fighting for us? How can you prove that? What makes you be the person that really would understand this? And what I keep telling them is like, look, I grew up down the street from you. I know how things are, how they've been running, and how we've been left behind for so long in this community. And I have that same fire burning within me as they do. So I can relate with them directly. We haven't had, I haven't really had any talk with anyone that says, hey, you know what? I don't like you. So
Yeah. I think when you open up to people, regardless of who the candidate is, I think when you open up and you share your story, people are going to identify with that. And that's a powerful thing.
it's been very difficult for me. I honestly, we're growing up with this very Mexican culture where we need to be very prideful of what we do, our achievements, and we always talk about how nothing is handed to us, right? And being a candidate right now um, has challenged me in so many ways because I did not used to talk about these things. I've always focused on being a victor, not a victim, and I always continue to push and push and push and focus on getting out of the hole instead of talking about my story, because I always felt like, hey, you know what, maybe I just have, people don't want to listen to me, it's probably just a sob story, and they're like, and that's sometimes the reception that we get of folks that are just more disconnected from our communities and from realities. And that's part of like the main reason why I'm running. uh, there's a lot of people that just don't understand us, even if they have gone through some similar things, but if they, and somewhere else. But I think one of the things that we've been talking about, and especially a lot of advocates here that are homeless, that are doing a lot of work in our communities at the same time while being you know being facing these challenges right now in real time, uh, is that very same a dynamic or issue where we have all these folks that want to help, and it's great. Their heart is on the right, their mind is in the right side. They have a good heart, but they can't really get to help us find the right solutions because there's a distance between living them and knowing exactly what we've been through and seeing everyone around you suffer and whose lives continue to be, destroyed, continue to be just pushed away, placed aside because there's always somebody with more money, always somebody, some issue that's probably more important than us because we are small, we don't have a voice, we don't have a seat at the table. So,
Yeah, absolutely. What's the income and wealth inequality like in your district? Bad. I'm kind of assuming, but I'll let you give the details.
yeah, it's just, man, look, we we have people obviously making salaries anywhere in between, right? But in our district, we have on one end very concentrated parts of the district where we have like mansions and um, really nice roads and really nice houses, and then we have a big part of it that's really middle class, and then we have another part, in kind of the south of it. We have this sort of concept here of whether you live on the north side of the eighth or the south side of the eighth. Um, as, so the division between the rich and the poor is very clear. The income inequality, it couldn't be any more, what do you call it, absurd.
Is that also like, do you have a problem with homelessness? Do people need
Yes.
help with putting a cap on rent?
Yes. So some of the things that we've been doing, and we've joining the rent control, like tenants unions. We're fighting for rent control here. We're fighting for affordable housing also, but we need low income housing. People talk about affordable housing without really thinking about, okay, affordable to who, right? So that's what we need to start thinking about. Um, I think if we are able to put some caps on rent, people, and then working on other parts and other issues, allowing them to get to a point where they can start making livable wages, then we'll start swimming past the waves. Right now people are just swimming against the waves, and if one arm gets tired, You can't do it with the other one, you just drown. That continues to be the case of more and more people out here. In fact, just a couple of days ago, we had a UN representative come out and look at the crisis here in San Diego, the homelessness crisis. Um, and so it speaks a lot to how bad things are here in San Diego when it comes to the homelessness problem. It's gotten international attention.
Wow.
Homelessness in America has gotten the United Nations to send someone out here.
Oh
It
my
is that bad.
God. Wow. What is what's something that you would like to leave our viewers with so that they would check out your, your Facebook, your Twitter, your website, recommend you to people in California? Also give those your Twitter address, things like that. But what is something you would like to leave the viewers with to take away with them?
Look, I think no matter where you live in the States, the people that you'll have in Congress need to be folks that really have their feet really, on the ground and really centered and prudent. We need to have the people that are closest to the problems that also, to start joining the table. And anywhere you are in the country, and I'm not talking just about, again, the my district, but anywhere you are, start filling in those spaces. Because if you don't, then we continue to have folks that come from different places and just feel empathy for us and never really get to solve the problem because they don't understand it. So it's us who need to get out there, start preparing ourselves as much as we can to start fighting back. No one's going to do it for us. There's a lot of people that want to, they just can't do it for us if they don't understand. That's been the case in my district. That's been the case in all over the country. Two, we have this sort of dynamic, and something that I keep hearing a lot is some of these issues are just very local, homelessness, for example, or some of these issues are more national level. And politicians at every level of government keep making excuses for why they cannot solve them. I was at a city council meeting in the city of Chula Vista, which is also part of our district, part of it, earlier today. And, there is a council member that was giving all kinds of excuses for why that person could not support a resolution to ask Congress to work on, solve the gun violence problem. And the comment was, well, look, we're at the local level. There's not much we can do to move that needle. And I went up there and I told her, look, there's a lot of people behind me that are eager and very well prepared to be in your seat. And if they were, they could be doing a lot more. They can definitely push the needle from the very local level at the national level, especially if we have people in local government all over the country fighting for that. So what we got to do right now is start closing, fighting to close that gap between the super rich and the lowest income. The households in sort of the top 5% and the middle class, roughly households in the middle sort of 20% also. Sorry. Basically, those of us that are continue to be stepped on, we need to get up and fight back.
Absolutely.
If we start looking at the issues that we got to fight, we need. You asked me earlier, in this interview, what are the issues? Honestly, we're fighting for all the issues. We're fighting for a stronger economy for middle class and working class, for better jobs, green jobs, start getting people paid little wages, We're fighting for education for all. We're fighting for comprehensive immigration reform. I'm not only asking to abolish ICE. I am asking for abolish ICE. I want to also break up CBP. I think that we need to separate business from people's lives. Immigration. As far as immigration, we need to have a independent federal agency that focuses only on immigration, that is not going to be staffed by appointees of the president, but actually work through the merit promotion system, where the people that have been in the front lines helping immigrants, helping solve this issue, can actually, that and have proven to be doing so, can actually start running that, so we can actually have a humane approach to the issue of immigration. It should not be a problem. Immigration, people coming in are coming in with all kinds of skills. They're coming in with all kinds of, with grit, with energy to be better. These are not people that are sitting at home just waiting for life to go by. People are coming in here to make an impact in their lives, to contribute to our society, to contribute, to be employers, to be workers, to be joining our unions, to be out there canvassing with candidates, to be fighting on the front lines of activist issues as well. So we need to really start thinking differently as far as like how we see immigration. They're not just the poor people that are trying to come here to this country and seeking help. One of the things that I saw earlier today was like, all right, how come people keep thinking that immigrants only come here for our welfare, and they're only come here to take advantage of our system, when and the argument is that they don't work and all that, but all the ICE raids are going to job sites to pick up workers and deport them, like it just happened in Mississippi, right? Mississippi, we had 680 or so people that were deported, and I see my life, my story, what happened to my family happened that time 680 times, times. So that's so many children that are losing their parents, that are jumping into adult roles. So we got to start fighting for them. We got to start fighting for housing. We need to start making sure that there's no discrimination whatsoever on gender preferences, backgrounds, race, anything, right? So that we can all have a better fighting chance. We need to fight for the Green New Deal. We need to start revamping our economy. The Green New Deal is that answer for us. We need to start fighting for equal rights. We need to end corruption. We need to start working on, pushing back against partisan gerrymandering and ending that. We need to start working towards expanding democracy and voter protection, stop gun violence. When it comes to felons as well, one of the issues that has been very problematic for some folks to get into, it's like, all right, why do you want felons to vote? Look, felons, their right to vote is protected under the Constitution, yet we're not allowing them to vote. They're people that are their parents, the people that are uncles, they have children, they have roots in the community, ties in the community, and so they should be able to be making votes so that their children can have better funding in their schools as well, so that they can have a good chance to go to college, so they can have a good chance to leave college and get into a good career and start competing with those that come from more affluent neighborhoods. We live in a society right now where we punish folks because they cannot focus too much on school yet, and thus don't get the right scores in grades, because they're working after school and they're taking care of their kids while their parents are at work. And then we're pitting them against folks from more affluent neighborhoods and life backgrounds, and saying, hey, you know what? Well, so and so is getting all the good grades. How come you cannot do it? And then those folks are the ones that get into the top schools, get into the top colleges, get those opportunities, right? So it's really just starting to look at everything from the ground up instead of from the top down.
Absolutely. And what is your Twitter and your website and Facebook and all that stuff?
Okay. Should I just type it in, or you want me to say
no,
it?
You can say it, and usually
Okay.
one of our teammates will post it in there then.
Okay. Let me bring it up. This one was just changed. So the Twitter is at Joaquin. I'll spell it out. capital J O A Q U I N capital V A Z underscore CA 53. And then you can find me on Facebook just at Joaquin Vazquez for Congress. My website is vasquezforcongress.com. And my Instagram is it's Joaquin, ITS Joaquin Vazquez. It's Joaquin Vazquez.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and shout out to Lana, who is a teammate who recommended you. So thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck. Tomorrow night is the night that is going to be insane. I am moderating a debate with all three Dems running against Nancy Pelosi. So it is going to be insane. It's going to be live at 9 p.m. Eastern. So it is Tom, Agatha, and Shahid. All of them are going to be here, and we're going to be doing a pretty hardcore debate. There's several articles that have been written about it. I posted them to Twitter, and I believe I pinned one of them on the Real Progressives page.
Okay.
But
so are all of these progressives?
What's that?
They're all progressives, right?
All three, yeah.
Okay.
All three of them have that kind of, the Medicare for all, Green New Deal, that kind of thing. So we'll have the debate and see where the differences lie. But let's get Pelosi out. That's all I'm saying. Let's just get her out.
Last thing that I would say is just reminding everybody to vote, to get involved in the census. We're facing a critical time right now where the census is being used as a tool to undermine our democracy and weed out a lot of folks that are going to be voting for the right things. And then check out my website. I have several bills that we're leading the effort on. We have one that's justice for all, because justice should be for all, not for the few or the rich. And we're working on that immigration bill, and we have a lot more coming up.
Awesome.
So check out our website. Donate if you can. Please do. We're running a clean money campaign. We're taking no money from special interest, corporate interest, corporate PACs, or corporations in general. It's all a people, powered campaign here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joaquin. Tomorrow night, you guys, 9 p.m. Eastern. Tell your friends, share it. It's going to be bananas. And I'll be scanning the comments too. So thanks again. Best of luck. Have a great night, you guys.